Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. 4 weapons fired at once and hit nothing. I want you to understand what that means before I tell you anything else. 22 minutes of mapping, 4 fold compression units locked and charged, a target 9 kilometers long that could not possibly move fast enough to matter. And when the light cleared, there was empty space where a warship used to be. I was 3 light towers back, hiding my whole fleet behind a gas giant like a child behind a door, and even from there the sensor wash made my teeth ache. That was the day I stopped believing the war had a shape I already understood. My name is Sane Ka. I have commanded coalition fleets for 11 years, which is another way of saying I have watched the Dreth burn 412 worlds, and I have gotten very good at counting the ones we have left. I am telling you this now, long after, because the numbers I carried into that week are not the numbers I carried out of it, and somebody should say plainly how that happened. It started with a ship we could not fit in our own harbor. We had asked humanity for help the way you ask a stranger for help when you are too proud and too desperate to phrase it well, through Ambassador Vale Oren, through a signal that took 6 days to cross the dark, through every piece of tactical data we had never dared publish because publishing it would have told 100 worlds exactly how badly we were losing. A woman named Director Chen read all of it and sent back 9 words. We are sending a ship. Do not scan it. It arrived 11 days early, which told us something before it told us anything. My sensor officer woke me at an hour the station doesn't technically have, and I stood in my sleep robe with cooling tea in my hand and watched a silhouette assemble itself on the display that made every one of my 4 hands go still. 9 kilometers. Our largest carriers ran 4. This thing was layered, hull plating patched over hull plating, scars healed and reopened and healed again, the kind of damage record that takes a very long lifetime to accumulate. Our analysts dated the metal itself at a minimum of 180 years. We had known humanity for 40. The captain who came aboard our station did not perform anything. Marin Holt walked into a briefing room full of species that had been trying to kill each other for centuries and asked for a display large enough to show us what she was thinking. Then, for 3 hours, she and 2 of her officers took our 11-year war apart piece by piece, not to blame us, just to understand where the machine had failed. I watched my own hands during that meeting. For the first hour, they didn't move at all. That's fear in my body. By the 3rd hour, they were moving on their own, fast, the way they move when I've found a thread worth pulling. She had 10 requests. 9 of them were data. The 10th was that my fleet stay hidden and let the Dreth find her ship alone. I did not like that request. I have never liked standing back, and I told her so. She didn't argue with me. She just said the math only worked if the Dreth thought they were looking at one target, and she needed them to be wrong about that for exactly as long as it took. The scouts came first, 3 of them testing the water, and the Carthage answered by simply waking up. Nothing fired. It didn't need to. The scouts looked at whatever their instruments told them and turned around inside 6 minutes, which in 11 years I had never once seen a Dreth vessel do. Then came the 22. That's the engagement I opened with. A full assessment force, 4 fold compression units among them, the same weapon that had erased 17 of my battle groups at the Voreth line in a single afternoon. I sat behind that gas giant with my hands flat on the console and watched the Carthage do something I still don't have a clean word for. It drifted. Slowly, almost lazily, shifting position every few minutes while the Dreth built their gravitational map around wherever it had just been. By the time they finished mapping and pulled the trigger, they were 400 meters and 2 minutes behind the truth. The compression event was beautiful and it hit nothing. Then the Carthage answered, not a beam, not a missile, something our cataloging systems had no name for, a round that punched through a heavy assault ship the way a stone punches through still water. 1 fold compression unit came apart mid-turn. 19 ships fled. The command vessel didn't stop broadcasting the whole retreat, and it took me a moment to understand it wasn't calling for help. It was filing a report. Marin Holt let it go. When I asked why, when I said surely we wanted no one alive to tell that story, she told me the opposite was true, that a destroyed command vessel taught the Dreth nothing. But a survivor forced their command to sit with the fact that 22 ships had failed against one, and had to explain why they hadn't advanced. Certainty is harder to rebuild than ships, she said, and I have thought about that sentence more times than I can count since. They sent 211. 4 waves, 36 hours, 22-fold compression units this time. Enough, by every rule this war had ever followed, to saturate any evasive pattern a single ship could manage. I brought my 47 vessels out of hiding at her request, not to fight, just to be seen, and the Dreth formation stopped cold at the edge of engagement range. Staging, waiting to see if the numbers frightened us into running. We held, and then the Carthage did something I had never once seen a warship do to an enemy fleet before a shot was fired. It broadcast to them openly in their own command format and told them exactly how it had beaten the 22. Every timing window in their mapping process. Every doctrine assumption baked into their weapons release protocol. It told them plainly that it had already accounted for their entire strategy, and that this was not a warning about what would happen to this ship. It was a warning about what would happen after it. You have seen what one ship can do to your worst weapon, it told them. We did not come here to show you our strongest hand. We came so you would understand what the smallest one costs you before you ask what the rest of it looks like. 9 minutes. That is how long 211 ships sat motionless in the dark, deciding whether to believe a threat that had, so far, been entirely true. Then they turned, all of them together, the reluctant way a formation turns when the order giving it is one nobody wants to give. I watched them go, and I put my hands flat against the console again, not from fear this time. I didn't have the word for what it was. My grandmother had won, in a language I barely speak anymore, and the closest I can carry it across is the weight coming off a thing that has forgotten how to stand without it. Marin Holt told me afterward that the Carthage wasn't the answer to this war. It was the first sentence of one. 4 years of quiet building, ships staged in coordinates she then simply handed to us, construction timelines stacked behind them like the wall of a damn nobody outside her government had known was rising. She said humanity doesn't act quickly. She said that isn't the same as not acting. I don't know yet if we win this. The front is still eating light years while I say this. The Dreth are still the Dreth, and they will come back more carefully than they left, which may be its own kind of danger. But 3 days after the 211 turned around, I opened a transmission with construction numbers in it that made Vale Oren go silent on the channel for so long I thought we'd lost the signal. When he finally spoke, all he said was, "These numbers are," and stopped. I know what he meant to say. I didn't say it either. Some things you don't say out loud the first time you're allowed to believe them. I keep on my own console now, a single frame from that first fold compression event, the moment after the light cleared, before anyone understood what they were looking at. Empty space where a ship should have been destroyed and wasn't. I look at it sometimes, not because it explains anything, but because it is the exact instant the math started changing, and I want to remember what that looked like before I knew its name.